that heavily impacts the entire industry. I'm a solution-driven guy. As you mentioned, the entire country is stopped. Try to understand the problems, and I listen to the problems, but in my head, I immediately start to try to solve issues.
Das 8 da manhã até a hora que for preciso.
We are very eager to learn.
A organização desportiva precisa de pessoas que tenham disponibilidade para fazerem as coisas acontecerem.
We have to share experience to facilitate.
That's my vision for the future. Hello, Mr. Mario. It is a pleasure to receive you today here in this moment that is so terrible for everyone, but we need to talk about what we should do to prevent Coronacrisis to affect our sports industry.
Hi, Cheldon. Thank you so much for your call, for the interest. I hope everybody is safe and sound and first and foremost healthy in your home, in the team. And over here, everything is fine. As you mentioned, yeah, it's a big crisis, not only in the country, it's the entire Europe. And in fact, since yesterday, I guess it's the entire world, because the US have a lockdown, South Africa went for a lockdown until April. So the entire world is in a shock mode or in a crisis mode.
Yeah, and this crisis mode is necessary for health reasons, as we know, but will bring some consequences. Bloomberg today wrote that Germany's economy is heading for a steep recession as attempts to slow the outbreak of the coronavirus pandemic sent the service sector into an unprecedented slump. And as we know, the vast majority of sports clubs in Bundesliga, in professional leagues, they are business, so they fit in this services sector. We will be affected either way. I recently read an interview that you gave to a German media, and you talked about one type of measure that we could be doing, the legal type of measures. So I would like to ask to you something more about your thoughts, about your reasons to believe in the abolishment of the 50+1 rule.
Mm-hmm. Well, thank you for pointing it out. Yeah, it's a big situation for all the clubs, all the athletes, all the leagues, federations, but not only for them. I mean, just imagine now the broadcaster cannot broadcast any content. So if he's got no content, he's got no sponsorships, which means he's losing advertisement revenue. And of course, first and foremost, the society and fans, obviously it's absolutely right that we lock it down for a period of time. But obviously there's only a focus on problems, only a focus on crisis, and only a focus on, let's say, frustration in a way. Germany is a little bit in a lucky position that we have a lot of breathing aids. But obviously, as you mentioned, the entire country is stopped. Normal shops, self-employed agencies, marketeers, they are all at the moment forced to stay at home. And obviously that heavily impacts the entire industry. My personality, I'm a solution-driven guy. I try to understand the problems and I listen to the problems, but in my head, I immediately start to try to solve issues. 50+1 in Germany is a unique difference to other European football leagues, because the Premier League has obviously ownerships either through shareholding with Manchester United and many others, but also by investors like Kroenke from Arsenal, the Glazer family in Manchester City. So they have investors, and obviously in the contract, any profit they make, they have to give a certain percentage of this profit back to the owners. That's why many of, like the Newcastle owner, for example, he's very skeptically driven by the fans, because they say he's not investing enough. He's taking too much from our club. So and obviously that's a different ball game. 50+1 means the majority of the club ownership is within a society fund, which means the club fulfills a society purpose. In German, it's called Gemeinnützigkeit. So his role in society is like a non-profit organization. Everything he earns, he needs to give away to other departments, to initiatives and everything. That's the principle of a registered sports club in Germany.
In Portugal, we have the same system. At least it seems to me very, very similar, because all clubs are non-profit clubs. So they are associations. And then what we built here was a legal framework where they can start a business. Here we call SAD, Sociedade Anónima Desportiva. That is more like a sports commercial society. So it is similar, the problem.
Exactly. So the setup is very similar. And obviously, if you are a non-profit organization, you cannot put savings for a moment of crisis, because you are a non-profit organization means that every of your annual business you have to remain in balance. If you have savings, you need to dedicate them to specific campaigns, to specific initiatives, but only a limited amount. And now, obviously, with the league being suspended for the time being, because if the league would be ended, no broadcaster would pay any more money. So there are initial calculations that certain clubs will end the season with between 15 and 25 million euro deficit, and 25 million minus, which means going to the non-profit organization club, means the club will not exist, because he still has invoices to pay. He still has everything to cover on cost, because it's not only the playing staff, because you have team members, accounting, normal employees, which also need to have obviously salaries. And because you can't pay them, obviously the club will be folded and will not exist, will be delisted or deregistered.
Yeah, that's of course a huge problem, namely because of the source of funding. We are talking about private funding, but also this system that you propose, repealing the 50+1 rule, could be good and could be bad. Could you explain a little bit more of these consequences, or how it would work for Bundesliga?
Yeah, no, obviously you're absolutely right. I mean, with every positive, there is something negative happening. So if you maintain, or if you break down 50+1, you have clubs, because investors are keen on sports, that clubs' ownerships will change. And then obviously that own interest will follow. So that's obviously a threat to the traditional Bundesliga environment, a threat to the fans, a threat to the league in as well, because obviously if somebody hugely rich comes in, obviously he can buy any player he wishes, and the economic cleanness of the Bundesliga is sort of in danger. But in order to protect it, obviously, we have a German limited law where you can block certain decisions if you own 25.1%. So instead of 50+1, I would say that there should be a blockage minority of 25.1% remaining at the club, that he can block any of those critical decisions, which should be obviously clearly specified what those critical conditions and critical decisions mean. And obviously that could be a legal solidarity.
Just touching this point that you referred, this is financial literacy, because we are talking about financial market, regulated markets, shareholders own shares. People do not understand that the minority status could be a blocking status to extreme situations, extreme decisions that would underline their history or their consumer behavior.
Protect consumer behavior, protect obviously certain purposes the investor wants to change. And if they are transparent, yes, they could be absolutely protected, and nothing would really change, apart from obviously that the non-profit will fade away. But then again, we see a lot of the sports club making 100 million, 150 million revenue per year. And can you imagine a non-profit organization making 150 million per year? I mean, these are medium-sized industries, and their commercial framework is like amateur style. So that's why I was looking for solutions how to break it. Obviously, I also understand that this process, breaking 50+1 up in a moment of crisis, will still take 3 months, 4 months to be enabled for all the 18 teams. But in the meantime, I recommended there should be a solidarity fund from the league to put in, 50 million euros. So if any club comes in the meantime into any emergency financial crisis because the matches behind closed doors are not accepted by the health authorities because the situation is still dangerous. The uncertainty, I think, is the most difficult situation. People don't know when it can continue. So that's why I recommended in the interim a solidarity fund, like a foundation managed by the league, where a club also has to fulfill certain criteria to get money out of this solidarity foundation funding. But it also protects, obviously, that each club can survive. At the moment, all of the clubs are calculating scenarios, how long they can survive. And obviously, a Bayern Munich and Borussia Dortmund, they can probably survive 9, 12, 15 months without a game. But other teams who have calculated very sharp because they didn't want to relegate or they wanted to qualify for the European leagues, they've hired and bought players which they require to achieve their goals. Mm-hmm. And obviously those players still have salaries to be paid, and obviously all the salaries of the club. So a regular Bundesliga club has about 150 to 200 employees to be paid outside the playing squad. So it's a huge money circulation required.
So let me summarize. Basically, your position is to promote the repealing of the 50+1 rule, and also to promote a common fund. But where do the money comes from for this fund?
This one comes from the league. The league should have some savings because the league is commercially driven. Because for the Portuguese Football Association, similar to the German Football Association, the DFB, they are also a non-profit organization. So they don't have savings as well because they need to dedicate their funds to the regional federations. So they don't have savings. But the league, who is a separate entity, they obviously manage all the broadcast contracts. They manage all the league sponsorship contracts. They should have, let's say, some security parachute, like the Premier League, for example, when the club goes down. So there should be an insurance to cope for situations like this. Therefore, you should be able to get bank loans or credits to protect your teams, and then obviously pay them back as soon as the match days restart.
So thank you very much for your time. I really appreciate that, Mr. Mario. Would you like to give some last advice for the club managers from Portugal or from Handball all over the world?
Yeah, no, it's a true pleasure and real honor. So for me, the time is not of essence. I love the conversations with yourself. We met in Cologne. You're dedicated and emotional, on a path to a vision, and I reach out to all the handball managers and everything. Follow your vision, follow your heart, because that fulfills our role, that fulfills our day-to-day happiness, our day-to-day dreams, and our day-to-day dreams affect our families, give our families hope, give our families strength, which then again brings the handball family together. And that's what it needs in moment like this. Yeah, we stand together, and most of all, I wish you all the very best and stay healthy.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that. Stay healthy too.
Das 8 da manhã até a hora que for preciso.
We are very eager to learn.
A organização desportiva precisa de pessoas que tenham disponibilidade para fazerem as coisas acontecerem.
We have to share experience to facilitate.
That's my vision for the future.